Maybe it's been one of those days. You know, the kind where everything feels just a step ahead of you. You rush out the door, still half awake, a little behind schedule, a sense of urgency already clinging to you. There is no time to sit, so you grab a quick coffee on the way and keep moving. You move through the crowd, crossing streets you don't even remember crossing. Streets blur into one another, faces flicker past. Still, a few familiar faces emerge from the flow. A friend, perhaps, or someone you vaguely know. You exchange a quick nod, a rushed greeting. No words, no pause, and then you move on. And just when you think you can finally rest, you pause for a moment and pull out your phone to read the message that just arrived. But instead of opening it, your finger slips and the front camera turns on. There it is, your face. You notice how tired you look, how the wind has messed up your hair. And then, as if that wasn't enough, you see it on your shirt, a tiny coffee stain you hadn't noticed before. You wipe and wipe it, but the stain stays. It clings to the fabric as if it belongs there. In a flash, it's all you can think about. How many eyes have seen it? Has it altered their perception of you? Do they now think you're messy, distracted, or careless? A sense of panic rises. Your mind replays the moment over and over. You are sure everyone saw it and remember it forever. At this point, let me give you a small spoiler. What you don't realize is this: most people didn't even notice. And the few who did, they have already forgotten. Today, I want to talk about one reason why we often feel like the main character in someone else's story. Does this happen to you too? Have you ever felt as if everyone is watching your every move? As though a spotlight is following you, highlighting every little mistake? This isn't just a passing feeling. There is a well-documented tendency behind this experience. This experience is known in psychology as the spotlight effect. It describes how we often overestimate the attention others pay to our appearance and behavior. The spotlight effect occurs because we all live inside our own heads. We experience the world from an inherently egocentric perspective. This does not mean we are selfish. It simply means that our own perspective becomes the starting point for how we understand the world. We know in detail how nervous we feel when we trip and fall, how our face turns red when we say something slightly awkward in a conversation. And when we imagine how others see us, we begin from that intense self-awareness. In other words, we assume others see us the same way we see ourselves. But most people are largely occupied with their own thoughts, their own worries, not with us. To see what this really looks like in everyday life, picture this for a moment. Think about the last time you were in a crowded place, a cafe, a subway, a classroom. Everyone around you looked composed, put together, seemingly confident. But beneath the surface, each of them was likely replying their own small worries. Something they said, something they wore, something they wished they had done differently. From the outside, they seemed calm. From the inside, they were carrying their own quiet spotlight, just as you were. This is where the misunderstanding begins. We confuse how salient something feels to us with how noticeable it actually is to others. When something stands out vividly in our minds, we tend to believe it must stand out just as much to everyone else. At its core, the spotlight effect arises through an anchoring and adjustment process. We anchor on our own rich, emotional, first-person experience and then adjust too little for the fact that others have a far more limited view. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever stumbled over a word during a presentation, replying it in your mind all day, while everyone else was focused on their own slides? Or have you ever posted a photo and zoomed in on every tiny imperfection, while most people simply scrolled past without a second thought? We experience every emotion, every thought, every moment of self-doubt in vivid detail, with striking intensity. And when we try to imagine how others perceive us, we begin from that same intense vantage point. We anchor ourselves in our own experience and then attempt to adjust for what we think others notice. But that adjustment is rarely enough. We remain too close to the anchor, to our own thoughts. Sometimes that spotlight doesn't seem to turn off. For people with social anxiety, it can feel as though it's always fixed on them. Social anxiety isn't simply shyness. It involves a deep fear of being negatively judged, of being evaluated, scrutinized, or misunderstood. When social anxiety is higher, the spotlight feels harsher and every small detail appears far larger than it truly is. But here is the reality. Most of the time, everyone else is standing under their own spotlight. They worry about their own appearance, their own mistakes, their own invisible audience. We are rarely the center of attention, even when our minds make it feel that way. In short, the spotlight effect appears to be shaped by egocentrism, limited adjustments for others' perspectives, and a tendency to overestimate how much attention others actually pay to us. So, if that's the case, what can we do about it? One possible way to soften the spotlight effect might be to gently change how we imagine ourselves. In other words, this can involve shifting our mental imagery, picturing a future version of ourselves, or viewing ourselves from a more distant outside perspective. Doing so may help loosen that strong anchor to the self and bring us a little closer to how others might actually see us. Stepping outside our own viewpoint can sometimes make things clearer. The spotlight often isn't as bright as it feels from the inside. Much of our lives is lived under the weight of an invisible gaze, as if the whole world were carefully watching our every move. We rehearse moments that no one else remembers, while everyone around us is too busy playing their main role in their own stories. In our minds, every awkward moment feels magnified, but for everyone else, it tends to fade into background noise. We often feel as though every mistake we make is noticed, carefully observed, and quietly judged. Of course, there may be a few who pay close attention, but they are far fewer than we imagine. In reality, the spotlight we feel shining on us exists mostly in our own minds. So, before you go, think about the last time you were certain the whole world had seen your mistake. You felt watched, judged, as if everyone was waiting for you to fall. And then, time passed, and you realized that no one else even remembered. If you could step outside that moment now, what would you see? A crowd staring at you? Or people quietly absorbed in their own stories?